chat. And now we're going to open the webinar. So we are live on all fronts right now. And all the connections work, Martha.
I don't know if we can top our green room conversation, but
I know the green room conversation was pretty fun. We should have been recording that.
Well, I think we were all worried for a minute that you were, but
I did just get my second COVID shot, so God knows what's going on with my brain today. So all good. All good stuff. So oh dear goodness.
You want me to
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you need some? It's okay. You can step in.
I'm going to do it. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Couch Surfing. While everybody's getting settled, let's go over some housekeeping stuff. So if you're on the Zoom, there's a couple ways to view in speaker view or gallery. And you can choose either to the left or the right, top right. And then we'd love for you guys to participate. And there's a couple ways that you can do that. So if you're on Facebook and you're watching live, please feel free to leave a message in the comments and Julie will bring it over here. And if you are here participating in the Zoom, if you scroll down, you'll see a Q&A box. That Q&A box is where you put any questions or comments that you have, and we'll make sure that Martha answers them. And then in the chat, Julie will be putting in links to Martha's books and to our books, or any other books that we mentioned today will be there, because Warwick's is an independent bookstore and we need to celebrate our independent bookstores. See that segue for you?
That was good. That was good, Liz. Thank you. And thank you for being professional, because I lost my professionalism there.
That's what I'm here for.
You got my back. So welcome everybody. We were talking in the green room that Martha actually acted as an interviewer for us a couple times. Once last year, was it earlier this year that you did the other one?
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of January.
So we're super excited to be celebrating Martha's book this time. So yay, congratulations on To Love and to Loathe. So as Liz mentioned, any way there is to get a book, you can get it from Warwick's. I'll be putting it into both the webinar chat and also onto the Facebook Live comment section. So Independent Bookstore Day is coming up on the 24th. So keep that in mind. We have, Kate Quinn is going to be our special guest for Independent Bookstore Day. But what we're doing, which is super exciting, is next Tuesday. So if you're watching this, come back next Tuesday, because we'll be hosting Christy Woodson Harvey for her book. But then afterwards, we're going to do a 1-year anniversary celebration for Couch Surfing. So yay, you guys, yay us. It's been a whole year. So we're going to have lots of authors on after Christy's event and everybody just talking. So Martha, I don't know if I can't remember if I sent you the link yet or not, but if not, I'll
you did, yeah.
Perfect. So we'll see, Martha. One of our questions, Martha, is going to be, what have you been doing since we hosted you last? So you have a week to come up with.
Eating pizza.
Exactly. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go. I'll pop out of the screen, but I'll come back in a little bit later.
Okay, great. Bye. Julie. Well, I'm Liz Fenton, and I'm here with Lisa Steinke. She's my best friend of over 35 years and co-author of 7 novels. And together with Warwick's, we've been co-hosting this couch surfing series for a year, as Julie mentioned. You can find us a lot of places: Instagram at Lisa and Liz, Facebook at Liz Fenton and Lisa Steinke, and you can find all of our links, including to the Fox Live book club we do every month at lizandlisa.com. But we're not here to talk about us today, although we would if you gave us the opportunity. Fine. Anyway,
we sure would. We're not going
we're here to celebrate an amazing author, Martha Walton. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She was born and raised in sunny South Florida, where she spent her childhood reading lots of British children's books and scribbling away in notebooks. Wishing for the novelty of seasons, she headed north, relatively speaking, and studied history and international studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where she also obtained her master's degree in library science. She is the author of historical rom-coms To Have and to Hoax, To Love and to Loathe, which was published on April 6th, and To Marry and to Meddle, scheduled for publication in 2022. By day, she works as a children's librarian and loves sundresses, gin cocktails, and traveling. You'd get along. Anyway,
yes.
Welcome, Martha. I'm going to pass you over to Lisa, and you guys, I'll be taking your questions. So please, please, please don't be shy. Ask any questions that you have.
Yes, please ask questions. They're always better. The readers always have better questions than we do. Well, congratulations again on your book. And it's received high praise. Emily Henry calls it sweet, sexy, and utterly fun. And it was named an April 2021 Library Reads Pick. Tell us what Love and Loathe is about.
So it is a rom-com set in Regency, England in 1817. And I've been calling it a frenemies to lovers romance. So it's about a man named Jeremy and a woman named Diana who are kind of longtime frenemies. They're part of the same friend group. They love to argue. They think they hate each other, but do they really? And so at the beginning of the book, Diana bets Jeremy £100, which is a lot of money in 1817, that he'll be married within the year. And she's going to plot to make this happen somehow. But shortly thereafter, Jeremy shows up at her house with a sort of scandalous proposition because he has recently received some unflattering feedback in the bedroom from his most recent mistress. And so he and Diana are getting ready to go to this country house party he hosts at his country estate every August. So he proposes that they sort of have a very brief secret affair while they're there together, so she can give him some honest feedback on his bedroom skills, because he knows that she will not try to flatter him by lying if he's not that good. And Diana accepts this proposition, and so they head off to the countryside where they think it's just going to be this very simple, sort of no strings attached affair. But as things so often do in romance novels, it gets more complicated from there. So
I mean, it's so much fun, and you must just have the most fun coming up with these ideas. So how did you come up with this one?
So Jeremy and Diana were side characters in my first book, which is to Have and to Hoax. And you don't need to have read the first book to read the second one. They stand alone from each other. But I think a lot of readers who read the first book kind of guessed that I'd be writing a book about Diana and Jeremy next. Every time they were on page together, they were kind of bickering. And I really, as soon as I finished writing that one, I was like, I have to write a story for them. But I wasn't sure what my entry point to their story was going to be. So I started with the marriage bet, which actually that scene originally happened in To Have and to Hoax as well. So I kind of rewrote it from Diana's perspective in this book, but that wasn't enough for me. I was like, what is another sort of angle I can come at this from? And the thing is, I've read, literally hundreds and hundreds of historical romances. I obviously love the genre, and in the vast majority of them, there's a very, innocent, virginal heroine, and the hero is some seasoned rake and seducer who's just instantly a genius in the bedroom. And I was like, but are they all what are the odds that they would actually be this great in bed? And so I really kind of playing with tropes and sort of subverting them a little bit. So I wanted to kind of have fun with that idea. So that's where I went with the book.
So what about your writing process? Do you come up with, so you had these characters from the first book, so that's obviously how you knew who they would be, but what about the rest of the characters? Do you come up with them next and then the plot, or do you have the plot first? And are you an outliner, or how detailed does it get?
I want to be more of a plotter than I actually am. I have delusions of being a plotter, I would say, because every time I go to write a book, I start out, I notebook out, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna write the most detailed outline, and then when it's actually time to draft it, it's just gonna be so easy because my outline is gonna be so great. And what normally actually happens is I get a third of the way into the outline for the book, and then I'm like, so I don't want to outline anymore. This isn't fun. I just want to write it. So then I start writing, and I find that actually, it's maybe not the most efficient way to write a book, because I end up having to rewrite it a couple times usually, because I'm still figuring it out what it's about, since I don't have a super detailed outline. But writing the book helps me figure out who the characters are, because I just can't do a really great detailed outline because I don't know how the characters would react, because I have to write them to figure it out. And so I think I'm very driven by characters in my writing. I love writing banter and dialogue. And so how I figure out who a character is, and therefore what direction the plot should take with this character, is just by writing a scene with them sitting around and talking to their friends or their love interest or whoever. That's how I get to know them as an author, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we can relate to that. We definitely prefer not to outline, and somehow the books just come together, but there is something to be said for outlining, which we happen to be doing right now. And for the first time, and it is an interesting process because you want to just stop that and just go write the actual book, because it feels like we're going to write it twice, kind of, right?
It's just,
As a
I
little
think
bit.
it's, I do end up writing it twice by not outlining. I basically guarantee that I have to write it like
so I
2 or
guess you're
3
writing
times.
it twice no matter what
It's
you
just
do.
like,
I had a thought, because Lisa, we were working on the outline right now, and when I was like going through it today, I'm like, this will actually, we've never actually done this, but man, this is going to make writing the rest of the book a lot easier. So
It actually is.
Like, where's it go? And it always comes together, but I'm always kind of like,
We never
like
know.
7 books.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I hope it comes together. And
Right.
as I was editing what you sent over to me, Lisa, I was like, oh, is this why people outline? It's like, now we're gonna know like what's
Yeah.
book. Like, that's great. Cool.
I was thinking that too, but I was also thinking maybe it's because we wrote the first like fourth of it already. And so maybe that's what made the outline easier. So maybe that's the way to do it. Write a quarter of your book and then outline the rest. And then I don't know. But
I know authors who do it that way, and I've been interested. I
Yeah.
want to try it because I'm like, I know myself well enough at this point that despite wanting to be a really good outliner, like I just get too impatient. So now I'm like, maybe that is the way to do it, is to start writing.
it's
and then when I get
interesting.
stuck, stop and outline.
You're being forced to
it's
do it.
interesting too, because it's almost 10,000 words and it's taken like 2 days, which is so weird.
Yeah.
It's just like, because it's almost 10,000 words.
Oh, I didn't know.
I know.
We're selling on spec, so and for those
Yeah.
who know, when you sell on, you write like a portion of the book and then you outline the rest of the book, so the publisher, like, you don't like go off a cliff or something after they buy your book.
Yeah.
You have this crazy
Yeah.
editing. Not that you have to stay with it, but anyway, we digress.
Anyway, and see what we meant? Like, if we can talk about us, we'll just totally hijack the interview, which we totally
No, I
did.
really love hearing how different authors work, because I just think
I
it's
do
so
too.
interesting. It like varies so much, and I'm like, how are you doing this? Like, an author I know right now she's writing a new book, and she has like a 12,000 word outline, and I'm like, you have a 12,000 word outline? She's like, yeah, drafting is so easy. And I'm like, can you please teach me how to do this? This sounds amazing.
I think it's you write a bit of your book first. I think that's what made the rest of this just flow out, because we knew all the people. They'd all been introduced. We kind of knew their personalities. So then it made it easier to figure out all the scenes and how they'd fit into them. But to just start from the get-go, having not written about anybody, I don't think it would be easy at all.
No,
But
it's
I don't
very
know.
hard.
I've never
to
done
me.
it before. So
I'm not good at it. Just a chaotic writer, I guess. It's just all chaos and me like crying in front of my laptop and writing 5 first drafts.
yeah, and I'm going to get to that because I read that you threw out a bunch of stuff like over COVID. So I want to talk about that. But first, I want to know how long it took you to write this book. Now that we know the process, the first time, I guess I should say.
It was pretty fast. So I kind of was taking a bit of a risk when I wrote To Love and to Loathe, because I drafted it while I was on submission for To Have and to Hoax, which was my debut. And since it's like kind of a linked standalone, I was like, well, if To Have and to Hoax doesn't sell, then definitely no one's going to buy this like spin-off in the same universe. But I just couldn't get the characters' heads out of my voices out of my head. So I just like went with it, and I was like, well, hopefully this will be okay, which it was. So I started it for a NaNoWriMo National Novel Writing Month project while I was on sub. So it was like the first 50,000 words I wrote like in a month. And then I took a break, and then I wrote the other 50,000 words in like 6 weeks. I tend to write really fast in like little short bursts, and then I get so exhausted from having done that, then I like can't even look at my laptop for like weeks on end, which is another kind of like writing habit that I would like to get past, because it again feels not that efficient. So yes, I wrote the first like a really, really rough draft pretty quickly, and then I had to set it aside for a while to do all the revisions for a hoax. Because actually I finished the like 0 draft of To Love and to Loathe literally the day after I got my book deal for To Have and to Hoax. So I like immediately had to kind of like switch gears and start working on that one. So I came back to it and kind of like rewrote it like several months later over the course of a couple months. But yeah, that like my first drafts, assuming I managed to get through them, which I struggled a bit with my current work in progress, they happen pretty fast. Like I don't like to like give up momentum once I have it. So I'm just like, go, and then we'll fix it all later. So
yeah. What was the editing process like? Not your own editing process, but once you got to the editor at the publisher?
My editor is really helpful to me because I feel like I have an issue with my characters ending up having very like both of my books so far. I've had very like ever shifting and kind of convoluted motivations, and so she's been like, I think one of the things she's been the most helpful at is like kind of helping me figure out how I can clarify the way the characters' motivations change over the course of the book, so that it's clear to readers and not just in my head like a bunch of like tangled up string. I turned into Love and to Loathe last spring, right at the beginning of the pandemic. And then she had my edit letter back only a few weeks later. So I did a kind of bigger, very quick, like within like 3 weeks, round of kind of more like developmental edits, just kind of strengthening some storylines overall. And then after that, I had line edits and stuff. It was a challenge just because it was again, like within the first couple months of the pandemic, and I was feeling very stressed and just like I was feeling the least funny I've ever felt in my entire life. So it was like after my first book had come out, and I was like, so then it's kind of that weight of reader expectation. And I was like, this one isn't funny. This one is trash. I'm not funny right now. But by the time, after a while, it became like a nice escape to sort of get to sit in front of my laptop and edit this one and not think about how we were all living through a pandemic. So
yeah, because in these types of books, and Liz and I were just randomly talking about this yesterday, you've got to be funny. And the dialogue is so important in these romance. And so I can see how that would worry you, but it turned out to be very funny. So you're just fine. So what did you throw out then? Was it what material for the next book?
Yeah.
What happened there?
To Marry and to Meddle is the one I'm currently working on, which is another kind of like linked standalone set in the same universe, but another set of side characters. And that one I started drafting actually in between rounds of edits on Love and to Loathe. So I started it like last June, and it was just one of those, the two characters in that one, the hero and heroine, have been together on page a lot in the first two books. So I was having a really hard time figuring out what the like entry point for their book was. I kept starting it at the wrong place. And then, so I threw out like 3 different drafts, like within the first 10,000 words. So I was like, no, this is wrong. This is where the book should start. And then even after that, I just couldn't get the balance right. So I think I had 9 different first drafts on that one over the course of like 6 months that I threw out. And then like I figured it out. My agent helped me figure it out. And then we sent it to my editor, like my option material. And she was like, okay, yes. Or what if we did this instead? And I was like, yes, no, this is right. Thank you. So now I finally feel like I know what book I'm
always
supposed to be
like
writing.
that.
Yeah.
I guess that's why that's their job, but it is always like that.
Genius.
Where they're like, you wrote this whole thing, but I think you actually meant to write this. And it's like, yeah, you're right.
I it had been such a struggle. Like I should have been like upset at how much I was again going to have to toss out, but it was just such an enormous relief because it was like a light had like switched on, and I was like, oh, yes, this. And I feel so much better about it now. I'm on deadline for it right now, so it's been I'm spending a lot of time with it lately, but I'm feeling pretty good about it.
All right, so cover.
I'm
go ahead.
The most 2 dreaded emails to open as an author are your development emails and the cover, what cover you're going to get. And but go ahead. Because now I'm segueing you putting the
did you do that segue on purpose, or is that what you're going to say? That's really weird.
Already what I was going to say. And then you're like,
we have like
the book.
Mind melding.
I am asking some questions over here. But it's fine. You can chop in. You can jump in whenever you want.
Thanks.
So I was gonna bring this up. The cover, which is similar to the last cover, and then I'm just wondering with both or either one, what your participation in the design was, if any.
So they send me a cover draft and ask my opinion. I've been very lucky that I haven't had that many notes so far. When they sent me this one, the character's hair color, both their hair was darker in the original draft they sent me. And in the book, Jeremy's hair is supposed to be like golden blonde, and Diana's is supposed to be like, it's described as like honey colored. So I was like, can you lighten it? And they could lighten it to a point, but the problem was they were worried that if they made his hair as light as it's really supposed to be, it would blend into the picture frame. So this was basically
that they really wanted to be yellow. Okay.
Yeah, so really his hair color as described in the book is closer to the color of the frame, but this is they just couldn't make it any lighter without it just being like his head and the frame like combined. And then the other thing that was kind of random, was in the original draft of the cover. Diana's hand looks kind of, it was very like, it was like a dolphin fin. We were like, can you make her hand look a little bit more like delicate and dainty, which they did. It looks much more like a normal human hand now. But I've been
It does look like a human hand now. It does.
You're going for. You would like your character's hands to look like hands and not like fins. Like that's my
Yeah.
the bar you want to clear. But no, I've been really lucky so far that I have not had to like, I don't know, get my agent to help me pitch a fit about covers because they've just, To Have and to Hoax actually had 2 covers. So this was the original cover for To Have and to Hoax.
Right.
And then they did a reprint of it after they'd already done the cover for Love and Below. They decided to reprint.
Okay. I was wondering about that.
I remember the other cover.
Yeah. And
I
really loved
remember the
one.
purple. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I really loved the original one. They went with a different direction with the cover for To Love and to Loathe because they wanted to really clearly convey like rom-com to readers, which I think worked really well.
Yeah.
And so then after that, they decided to go back and reprint Hoax with a new cover, and I love that they look so cute together. So I really love.
Yeah, they do look really cute together.
I'm glad I get to have
adorable.
matching copies on my shelf. It makes me very happy. So.
They're adorable. I think there's a question.
Yeah, one kind of relates to what's going on right now, and the other one we could hold for a minute. But I'm going to ask the second one first because I think it more relates. From Chandelier Carvalho, she's asking from Facebook. She's asking, who are the 2 characters that your third book will be about?
So To Marry and to Meddle is about, the heroine is Emily, who is Diana's one of her 2 best friends, who's a very sort of prim and proper debutante who's been on the marriage market for a couple of years now. And the hero is Julian Belfry, who's another kind of side character from both of the first 2 books, who is the son of a marquis who's kind of like a black sheep in his family because he was disinherited by his father and decided to open his own like theater, which is very scandalous for an aristocrat to do in the 1800s. So it's going to be a marriage of convenience romance between them. I'm having a lot of fun writing it right now.
I love that so many things are scandalous. I want to know what else is scandalous in the 1800s.
I know.
I think that's the fun of writing.
Everyone good in bed? That's what I want to know. Is everyone good in bed? Because that's very important.
Everyone in the next book is good in bed. And To Love and to Loathe, we had some issues. We worked them out.
We worked through them. Okay.
We worked through them. But they have fewer problems in the next one. So I'm kind of like, well, been there, done that. With To Love and to Loathe.
Yeah, I have another question I can do now.
You want to wait on it? Okay. Well, my next question was about the title. So again, was that always the title, or someone else suggest it? How did that go?
I'm really bad at coming up with titles myself. So my first book I queried to my agent, and then we sold as To Hoax a Husband, and that was my title. And then my editor wanted to change it to something like more punny, kind of. A lot of rom-coms have very punny titles. So she had like a whole list of things to choose from. And To Have and to Hoax was my like first choice. When she sent me the list, it made me laugh out loud. And that's what the people at Simon & Schuster liked as well. So that's what we went with. So then when I was drafting To Love and to Loathe, I wasn't necessarily thinking like, oh, they need to have matching titles. I'm like, does it really matter? So I wrote it as The Wedding Wager. When I sent it to my agent, she was like, oh, I think they should have matching titles. What do you think? And I was like, sure, so long as I don't have to come up with it, because I got nothing. So I'm really bad at this. So I floated the question to my friends, and one of my friends like almost immediately was like, "What about Love and to Loathe?" And I was like, "Well, that's a
really
great, yeah."
How
did you do that? So for To Marry and to Meddle, my third book, that's the only one whose title I actually came up with myself, and I can only claim partial credit because my editor and I, completely independently of each other, both came up with the same title. So she emailed me and was like, "What about To Marry and to Meddle?" And I was like, "But
no
that's
way.
my idea. I finally had a good idea, and now you already had the same idea." But I can at least claim partial.
That's
credit,
pretty
so.
weird.
I know. It was. It's like, it makes more, if you read any of the book, it makes more sense. We both come up with it because it actually like meddling part is like relevant to the plot.
I gotcha.
But yeah, I was like very,
but still,
I was very pleased with myself because I'm garbage at coming up with titles. So it's a very tough thing to do.
Aren't we all? It's so hard. You can write a whole book, but not it's funny.
Not a title, not a synopsis. Like both of those things cannot do.
So why historical rom-coms? What got you interested in that genre?
I'm a lifelong Anglophile and have watched possibly like every British period piece the BBC has ever produced. And then historical romances were kind of like my gateway into romance as a genre. Like I started reading historical romance, like the Bridgerton books, for example, which now like everyone is reading thanks to the show. Those were like actually kind of like my gateway romances. That's kind of what got me started reading the genre, and I just read a bunch of them. And so I read a lot of contemporary rom-coms now as well and really enjoy them. But when I kind of like took it into my head that I wanted to try writing one for myself, I wanted to do historical just because it kind of has this like place in my heart as like what got me as a reader. And I think it's kind of fun because you have all these sort of like social mores and restrictions and stuff that you as an author have to figure out how to like work around. So like the fact that if you have an unmarried heroine, like she can't be seen alone with the hero or they'll have to get married. Like, I don't know, just things like that you then have to figure out how to work around. It's like a fun challenge as a writer, I think. And then but I also really like funny books, which a lot of Regency romances are like very funny. It has the whole like subgenre has a really great tradition of a lot of like banter and being very witty. So I just decided to dial that up even more in mine just because I like jokes.
Well, I think that people that write they're just so smart because you not only get to be funny, but like you have to be historically accurate. Like I just have a lot of like we were just, and I know she's not writing wrong, but like you're reading Kate Quinn's The Rose Code, and it's still historical fiction, and the it just got to get all those things right. So we have a question from Jean Bruce Scott over on Facebook. She is asking, how many publishers did you approach before finding Atria? So I'm going to kind of change. She's probably kind of asking about your origin story to publishing. Don't worry, Jean, she'll answer your question getting to that, but I think that's probably what she's looking for.
Yeah, so my story of like my kind of like real origin story for like getting my agent and everything is actually kind of weird, which is that like whenever The Hating Game by Sally Thorne came out, I read it, which was like summer 2016, maybe. I was still in the process of writing To Have It to Hoax. And I loved it so much that I made a note of who the agent was when I was ready to query my book. So like almost 2 years later, I was ready to query, and I queried only 5 agents, and one of them was Sally Thorne's agent, who's Taylor Haggerty at Root Literary, and that's who I ended up signing with. So I only
We're
with 5.
Root too. We're with Root Literary too.
Really?
We're
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. But yeah, so I did all the things wrong, like you shouldn't do in querying. Like I only sent 5 queries. Like I didn't I hate querying as does everyone. And I was just being very lazy about it. And I was busy with other stuff. So I was like, I'm just gonna send these 5 and see what happens. And then Taylor loved the book. And so I was like, well, that worked out well. And her kind of thinking with it was that she thought it was kind of a good fit for a publisher like Atria or someone else that would publish it in trade paperback instead of like mass market, like more of a traditional Regency romance. She thought there was good crossover appeal for people who like a lot of like recent rom-coms and stuff. And so I can't remember honestly how big the submission list was. I know that we made it to acquisitions meetings at 2 other houses before getting ex-nayed because they were at both houses. They were concerned that the like historical rom-com was not a thing and wouldn't sell. And then there was a 3rd house where the editor loved it, but she didn't even bother taking it to acquisitions because of the same concern again. But then it ended up selling to Atria and preempt. My editor just loved it immediately and had the exact like same vision for it that Taylor did of like a really great kind of like crossover title. So everything worked out for the best.
Yeah.
And now we know we're agency sisters. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. We more recently have arrived there, but that's why you probably
best agencies. The absolute best.
They're fantastic. That's all I have from over here, Lisa. Send it back to you.
Okay. Well, we're coming up on 4:30, but I have a lot of questions. But so which one? What should I do? Do you have a favorite scene in the book or that you can, I guess, talk about that's not going to spoil anything?
I really love writing my hero and heroine with their friends. So like basically any scene that involves like the bigger friend group is a lot of fun to write. But there's a scene, I can't remember how far into the book it is, when Diana walks into the library and finds her best friend Violet, who is married already, basically giving like a sex ed lesson to their friend Emily, who is unmarried. She like has this anatomy text out and is like showing her illustrations and like basically explaining how sex works. And the entire time I was writing that scene, I was just like sitting at my laptop typing away, just cackling to myself. And it's one of those scenes that doesn't really serve much of a plot I mean, later they like transitioned to a conversation that did have plot purposes, but the whole part at the beginning was just totally indulgent. And I was like, is my editor gonna make me take this out? Because it really serves no function. But no, and I'm glad because it makes me giggle whenever I read it. So
It's fun. These books are fun. You've got to have scenes like that, I think. Okay, one more. Librarian. Did that come first? Or did the author did wanting to be a librarian come first or wanting to be an author come first?
So it's actually a funny question because I feel wanting to be an author definitely came first. I wanted to be an author since, I found my writing journal from 2nd grade recently, actually, my very first short story that I completed. Thrilling stuff, really. But I really owe my current writing career kind of to becoming a librarian because for the longest time I'm a children's librarian. And so for the longest time I wanted to write for children and teens. And that was, I wrote a couple of like kind of young YA, older middle grade, kind of squishy age range books after I finished college that I was not able to query successfully. And then when I was in library school, I had to take a popular materials class where we read a book from a different genre each week. And taking that class is what led me to start reading romance. I had to read romance one week and I read one and loved it. And then immediately, did a deep dive where I read 100, 200 romance novels probably in like a year. So I really have to say that it's because I wanted to become a librarian. I went to library school that I discovered the genre that I ended up wanting to write in. Because Having to Hope is the first time I'd ever tried writing something for adults, and certainly the first time I'd ever tried writing a romance. And it ended up just, as soon as I started writing it, I was like, oh no, this is it. This is what I want to write. I want to write in this genre. Mm-hmm. So I owe it all to library school, I guess.
I love that. That's a great story.
That's really good. Now, as we close out here, can you tell us, and it's been so delightful to talk to you today, by the way,
and to
see your book soar. Tell everybody how they can find you on social media.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Martha B. Waters, both places. Probably more active on Instagram than Twitter, so everyone should come hang out with me there.
Awesome. I just went and found you there and followed you. Hey, Julie.
This was so fun.
It was.
And I love Martha. I love that we were celebrating you today. So.
It was very exciting to get to come do another event with y'all here. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We ready to close out, ladies?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Awesome. So we know where to find Martha. And you guys gave your stuff earlier. Again, remember the book To Love and to Loathe that's in both of the comment sections. So order that from Warwick's. Just, you know what? I always love to ask too, Martha, not to put you on the spot because people are going to blow through your book. Give us a book that you would recommend people to read after they're done reading your book. You got anything off the top of your head?
Yeah, I'm actually currently reading the newest book in Eloisa James's Wilds of Lindale Castle series, which is it's a like 5 or 6 book series about a big, quirky, aristocratic family, very full of like fun banter, and it's very witty. So go read those.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. All right, so when I close everything out, we all go away, so we won't see you in the green room afterwards. So Martha, thank you for being here. Congratulations
Thank all of
again.
you. It was so fun. Yeah, thank you guys.
And Leslie said, we'll see you next week. So think of a good question of what you've been doing since we hosted you for next week.
It better be good.
Better be good.
I'll think about it.
All right, you guys. Thanks, Liz and Lisa. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.